You ever get the feeling a quiet street is hiding its teeth? 3 days before my life tilted, I would have sworn our block was the kind of place where the loudest thing was a lawnmower, then a black truck showed up, and everything steady started to wobble. My name is Luke Mercer. I used to do work that required me to be quiet and fast, and my daughter Kayla's 18, streams like it's breathing, tells truth to camera the way some people drink coffee. She lit fires with her live streams in the best possible way, until someone decided her honesty was a problem. It began with yellow envelopes, small fines for small things, non-conforming this, violation that. Kayla held one up on camera and laughed. 2 nights later, a Polaroid was shoved in our mailbox, our porch in the frame. The words, "Next time," scrawled across the white border. Someone had walked up to our house and taken a picture. Someone wanted us to know they could. A drone started circling after that, red light blinking like a second star. Kayla joked in the stream, "Big Brother's upgraded," and the chat laughed. But the joke dissolved when the drone hovered low, dipped, and floated back like someone reading the lines of a play. Then the truck rolled through slow at first, like a dog circling a limb, and when it jumped the curb, clipped Kayla's bike and sent her sprawling. Joking became impossible. He stepped out like he owned the street. "Todd Carver," he said, with that calm of a man who believes the law is something he can rent by the hour. 2 men with him wore vests that read Community Patrol. Badges and good shirts make confidence contagious. Todd called Kayla names, told her to stop stirring trouble. I asked him who he was. Simple question. He smiled like he was giving a sermon. "We keep the peace round here." His kind of peace, I'd learn, costs people more than money. I did what I had to disable the truck's tire with a careful shot meant to stop, not hurt, and the men backed up fast, like gamblers who'd been called on a bluff. Police arrived because someone called, statements were taken, and Todd leaned on the truck as if the law were a prop. Kayla's shoulder was bruised, her phone cracked, and her stream exploded with people yelling, "Go Dad," and "Call a lawyer." She wanted to post it all. I wanted to let it go. We argued like a father and daughter who both love fire. There was a woman across the street, Mrs. Alvarez, who watched everything from her kitchen window, a queen of casseroles and quiet truths. She came over that night with soup, and when Kayla opened the door, she said, "Girl, you can't be that loud without someone trying to hush you." Kayla laughed through the bruise. "Good. Someone should hush him." Mrs. Alvarez slipped me a photograph she'd kept from a month earlier, another Polaroid. Another porchan said she'd been too scared to call anyone until now. I rang James, an old buddy who now does private security. He came by with a laptop and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that turns a couch into a command center. We collected Polaroids, drone clips, timestamps, mapping each incident until the pattern looked deliberate, a plan disguised as local concern. Evidence isn't dramatic, it's patient. It's numbers and files that, when assembled, stop being quiet. Todd's lawyer called what we had community self-regulation. He used values like a soft hammer. Todd himself liked to speak in gentle sentences that carried knives. "We only want what's best for property values." When I told him in court, "You're not a judge," he smiled and said, "No, just someone who steps in where others won't." His arrogance was a slow, oily thing. Midway, an officer from the next county, Carla Ruiz, slid into Kayla's stream one night with a question that changed everything. "Has anyone been threatened in person?" It's strange how an authoritative voice can loosen jaws. People who'd been too frightened to step forward signed affidavits. A neighbor who had found a Polaroid on his windshield finally handed over his copy. Mrs. Alvarez swore to speak. The list grew. Power gets thin in a daylight room. Court days are long and bright, like being held under an inspection lamp. Todd sat there like a man convinced he'd always been right, and that illusion makes you a harder target than a loud, guilty face. During cross-examination, he leaned forward and addressed the courtroom like a preacher. I simply stepped in where others were too timid. When the prosecutor pushed back, Todd turned to Kayla and said, "You make a living stirring the pot, child. Some pots are hot." Kayla, with that stubborn look she gets, didn't hesitate. "Some pots need stirring, sir. Some are boiling because no one listened." Her voice carried sharp and steady, and for a second you could feel the jurors shift in their chairs. The prosecution played drone metadata, time-stamped photos, text threads, little things that, together, showed intent. It's funny how facts can sound like a confession when you hear them in a row. Todd's men avoided eye contact. The law moved slower than anger, but steadier. When the verdict came, relief was not euphoric so much as collective exhale. People who had been mouthing fear started laughing like they'd been given an extra breath. A town council meeting followed that week, packed, heated, full of people who'd been too scared to speak before. Kayla stood in the back with her phone off and spoke one sentence that I still hear when the house is quiet. You can either protect the people who live here, or you can protect the people who profit from fear. It landed like a drop of rain that cracks a dry bowl. Policies were proposed, hearings scheduled, and the old informal patrols came under new scrutiny. It felt like slow sunlight through blind small things changing the outline of a room. Afterward, neighbors filed onto lawns with casseroles and paper plates. Kayla spent nights in therapy reel, stubborn workhand for months. Her streams changed. They were quieter sometimes, more deliberate, a mix of humor and a fierce insistence on facts. She'd pause midstream and say, "I'm not doing this for clout. I'm doing this because someone had to notice." That line made people stay longer and listen more closely. Still, endings in life are more like commas. 2 weeks later, a Keep Our Values sign showed up on a lawn down the block. Todd's crew was quiet, but the idea they'd sold control disguised as civility kept circulating in whispers and polite emails. You can win a jury and still lose a culture. That's the hard truth. The fight to keep a community decent is ongoing. Vigilance is a job that doesn't clock out. What changed me was the small, stubborn choices more than the big courtroom moment. It was Mrs. Alvarez bringing soup, James logging drone metadata at midnight, a kid arguing with me about what justice looks like on a live feed. It was neighbors who began to knock on doors and say, "Do you see what we've been letting happen?" Courage is contagious in the messy way of a virus that does good. If I had to be honest, silence is not neutral. It's a vote for the status quo and for whoever benefits from it. People like Todd count on curtains and quiet. They rely on the polite. They rely on the speed with which neighbors will look the other way. So here's the practical bit. If you see something, take a picture, write down a license plate, talk to someone, upload evidence, get a statement in writing. Put the quiet things into files that can be loud when they need to be. I don't pretend we solved everything. Policies changed about community patrols, a few men moved away, and our block has more porch lights on at night. But vigilance is tiring and constant. Culture shifts slowly. If you found a Polaroid in your mailbox tomorrow, would you call someone? Who would you call? A lawyer? A cop? A friend who knows how to log evidence? Tell me, what would you do? Drop a comment below with a story or advice. If you've ever watched control sneak in under the name of civility, tell us how you pushed back or why you couldn't. If this landed, share it with someone who lives behind a quiet yard. Sometimes a story wakes a street up. Thanks for listening.